Hello and welcome. This series, The Person of the Therapist, will be exploring the pathways that therapists take in order to become competent, what their approach is, what do they value. We're going to be interviewing new therapists all the way along the continuum to very seasoned clinicians. I'm your host, Dee Preston-Dillon. We're beginning this series August 2024. I look forward to being with you during these interviews. Thank you. Enjoy. I have the honor to be interviewing for all of us today, Michele Putini, who is in California, a clinician, supervisor, but I'm going to be asking Michele about how she arrived into this clinical mental health field. What was it that she valued? And what are the touchstones that brought her, that made her who she is? And of course, we'll get into how it is that she has embraced, how she uses play therapy, but especially our focus is sand therapy and the meaning and the richness there. We have so much that, Michele, I know you have so much to share. So, where would you like to leap off? Like introducing yourself in terms of helping us understand what is your background, what is your specialization, and then we'll move forward from there.
Okay, well, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. My degree is in marriage and family therapy. And I have been a practicing clinician for going on 20 years. And I think that what I would say, I had two different paths that made me arrive at where I am today. The first one was a significant experience when I was about 15 or 16, where I had a friend who was going to therapy, and I didn't even know what therapy really was. But at the time, I was the kind of friend in my group that everybody seemed to want to talk to about things. And I felt like, people liked the advice that I gave. And I mean, I'm 15, so I don't know how brilliant it was, but they seemed to think and pursue me for a person to listen to them and to talk to them and all of that. So I thought, well, my friend her parents were going through a divorce. And so she said that she was going to this therapy. And I said, oh, well, can I come? Like, I didn't know that you can't just sit in on therapy. And so she talked to her therapist, and her therapist said, sure, bring her. And so what it was a group. And so it was a group for kids, for teens who were, having trouble. And so I couldn't just listen. I had to become a part of the group. So that was really amazing because I had never been to therapy before. And I guess what I got out of that was I went for about 9 or 10 weeks and I really liked it. And my friend, her parents were going through a divorce. So there was a reason for her to be in there. But for me, I didn't even realize why I was there. And the reason I was there is because at the time, I didn't feel like my dad loved me. And because he was very emotionally vacant, and he wasn't very emotionally attentive. He wasn't vocal about his feelings and he didn't say, I love you. I mean, he wasn't mean or bad or any of those things, but like as a little girl or a young girl, I'm looking at my dad and I'm like, I don't think he really loves me. And so I got very brave during this group and I decided to confront him on it. And so on the drive home, I told him, Dad, I feel like you don't love me. You never say I love you, and you're not affectionate and all those things. And I really feel like you don't love me. And he turned to me and he said, oh, sweetie, he said, I don't even do that stuff with your mom. And that was my first introduction to, oh, whoa, okay. Well, he doesn't really get it, does he? I mean, he kind of, I mean, I would take that now as oh my God, he minimized my experience. And he said, I don't even do that with your mom. It's like, no big deal. But that was my beginning of, oh, wow, being brave and talking about your feelings and getting things out there. that's kind of a thing that maybe I might want to pursue. So I was very young at that time. And so then fade in the rest of my life. Um, I didn't I didn't go to college out of high school. I went to, went to junior college, took a few classes, and I ended up getting into the travel industry, which was a totally different, totally different thing. And I did that for 13 years until I started evaluating what I was doing in my life. And I was in a thankless job where I didn't feel like I was making a difference in any way contributing to the wellness of the world. So I went back to school, started doing undergrad stuff, and I happened upon a psychology class, and because it was part of the the prerequisites or whatever. And something a professor said in that class kind of changed my life, which was he said that don't have a career for your mom or your dad or for money. Don't do it for any other reason than it's something you have passion for. And think about what you have passion for. And if you have passion for this thing, you won't feel like you work. So I left that class and I really liked this class and really studying a little bit of human behavior and all that. I'm like, I think I should change my major. And so that's when I shifted to psychology and found this fantastic school in Pasadena called Pacific Oaks. And their focus at Pacific Oaks, along with human development, a lot of social justice and cultural competencies and things that I was like, as a white person, I'm like, I didn't even get it. I felt I didn't get it. So I go, and that's where I went to school. But that was the change, was I wanted to go and do something where I was going to make a difference. I didn't want to have a job where I was just making other people, have a better, hotel experience, or being demanded of me my time and effort, when I didn't really feel like I was contributing to the wellness of the world. So that's actually how I started to become a therapist. And it
This is
was a little bit later in life too.
but I'm appreciating the path that you started with that 15-year-old, which, as we all know, whatever was going on with her started, of course, a decade even earlier. But we start there with you, and centering on trust, centering on, opening up and discovering a new way of being in that group with your friend and with this therapist, and then that engagement, that encounter with your father, and how life changing that. So you've set the stage for us to see how even going through taking time off and exploring another career, and then again back to class, and that personal reflection, like I hear again and again, I want to find meaning. I want to make a meaningful impact on the world. I want my life work to be meaningful. And so I'm really hearing that rich foundation on the importance of meaning, and social justice being a huge part of that. The changing of the life world, even during those decades that you were on your journey. What
For
would
sure.
you say are the primary values then, if you were to say, here is what drives me besides meaning and purpose, that I value, how would you fill that in?
Well, I think that in totality, in my life, I value connection. I value relationships, and I think for me, meaning comes from the connection of something, whether it's a connection to joy, or it's a connection to a grief, or a connection to another human being in terms of relating. So it's about, to me, the value of connection in building relationships is and I think, not that I want to talk about politics, but the connection that I have experienced in the recent past of the energy around change and the energy around someone or some place or some things that want forward movement. And I want to feel, I want to not just be, but I want to feel that. And that was my passion. Was it's about, I want to help people be more authentic, be themselves. I have a group practice, and I started it about 6 years ago, and it's called Be Authentic Family Therapy. Why did I do that? Because I wanted to be authentic. I wanted to find my people. I wanted to find a place where I belong, and not that I don't want to and didn't want to continue in my life doing what I had been doing, which was, I am a square peg and I'm trying to fit into round holes everywhere. I don't fit there, but I kept trying because I thought that was the only path to acceptance and to being in with connection with people. And what I learned was that was not authentic. It was a path, but it wasn't my path. And once I went to grad school, I finally found people who would say to me, "Hey, Michele, do you want to be in my group?" Or, "Hey, do you want to have coffee?" And I'm like, oh my gosh, they like me. I mean, for me, they don't, I know it's a Sally Field Academy Award moment, but I felt they liked me and wanted to pursue me just because of who I am. And I thought, okay, this is the beginning of that path. And so that beginning was 23 years ago. That was when I went to grad school. I think it was 23 years ago. So being authentic, being true, your true self, it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what color you are or what your, what language they speak at home. And kind of, I don't know who said it, but somebody at the recent convention said something about, it doesn't matter what your grandmother's language is that she speaks at home, that we're all accepted. We're all good where we are. So that is what drives me. And so the authenticity piece is the other part of my value, is that I want people to feel, as a clinician, as a friend, as a colleague, as a partner, as a family member, I want them to feel like they can be exactly who they are, with their wounds and their scars and their beauty and their pain, all of it, that I accept you. We accept you. Our world accepts you. That's my big, out there, the big existential crisis of not being accepted. But for me personally, I'm a one person at a time. So that those are my values. And that's what my practice is based on. And that's truly what my life is based on. I don't hang around with or stay around people who aren't authentic and aren't real, even if we don't share the same values, even if we don't share the same whatever. I still want people to feel welcome, and I want to feel welcome. If you don't welcome me, then I'm going to put up with I'm trained in being guarded. I mean, aren't we all? I'm trained to put up the wall and say, no, because, so that, I guess those are things that I value.
Michele, I really hear then the real ground of your approach to therapy is congruent with your very ground of being, with how you walk in the world. And so it's very existential. It's very grounded in humanistic principles, a very original humanistic and existential, and also the congruence from that analytic, the opening up of the self, and acknowledging social, cultural, and political arrangements that impact what we might refer to as the soul, the psyche, the heart. And then the way you bring yourself to therapy, this open-hearted, open-minded way of being. I know that you brought a couple of symbols, and I wonder if we could pause and really listen in now to how you use the symbolic. We could just start with what you brought and what these represent for you.
Okay, well, I'm happy to answer that, and I smiled because they're sitting on the table here. But as soon as you said those words that you said about me, I looked over, and you will smile when you see the first symbol that I bring. But I wanted to share my experience with when I was aware that a question, because I've been in a lot of your trainings, as you know, and your programs, so I saw that there was a possibility that you might ask for symbols for me to bring. My first thought was, well, I'm not in my office. I don't have my symbols. And then my second thought very fast was, I've never been in my office at any of the times when I have done any of these trainings. And so get up and look around. And so I did. And it's brilliant because, well, the first one I found was this. And
Oh,
so, yeah, that's the right. So you
wow.
said, I mean, this is the heart, and my heart, the heart is interconnected. This is about connection and love, and it's all beautifully carved and smooth. And I'm sure that there's parts, while I'm feeling it, so I can
Mm.
tell you that there are parts of it that are rough and that have a little bit of an edge. And but it is rooted. It has a very strong, if I put it down, it can stand up and be seen, and
Mhm.
you can look at it. It's very
Mhm.
complicated. It's got a lot of ridges and different colors.
Is
If you
this
look,
wood, Michelle?
it's wood.
Mhm.
It's wood,
Mhm.
and I'm happen to be looking at the back of it. It was made in India, so yay um,
Mhm.
for that. But it is complicated, yet it's very simple, and it's deeply connecting. But you can see the different parts. So
Well,
I've learned a lot.
before you move away from that, and
Oh, I can tell you.
what we usually do is then to step into that so that everybody here joining us can hear you with I am, and amplifying those two joined hearts with the kind of qualities that you own in there. And
Mm,
would you be willing to do that? To hold
yes.
your heart back up and tell us to enter it with who you are? I am. Yeah.
I am loving. I am kind. I am connected. I am complicated. I am deep. I am rich.
Mhm.
I'm generous and giving.
Mhm. The
I am
texture,
joyful.
the texture of the wood, the where you imagine the wood came from in order to form this, the hands maybe that were involved. How does that reflection, how is that for you?
Mm.
You mentioned some edges, some ridges, some
Mhm.
smooth and some rough. How does that, how is that for you?
Mm. The feeling I got was like of some, it was kind of like a depth of, like I don't know, it felt very spiritual in that, like I wondered, it brought up a lot of questions about it. I wonder who might have crafted this, and where might they have been? Were they from India? Because that's where this says it was. Were they, did they
Mm.
have dark with calloused hands? did they, how did they do this?
Mm.
How
Mhm.
did they get here? But it just felt very, like it made me kind of go, whoa,
Wow.
like it felt really deep, like, wow, like where did this come from, and
Mhm.
a person or
Mhm.
people touched this. And so the roughness and the gentleness and the smoothness and all of that from their lives are in this piece. And it made it feel really deep. And yeah, it made it feel really deep and even a different connection. And I would also add that my sister gave me this as a gift, so that it adds another layer to the, um, to the depth of meaning of this. And I always smile because this, the way I looked at this when I got it, which was recently in the last year, and the way I look at things now has changed since I met you and started doing workshops and trainings with you, because I look at everything now like it's a symbol of something. And I don't, like, the coffee cup isn't just a coffee cup, or it can be something else. And so I just thought I would mention that, because I actually think differently now when I look at things. I mean, when I got the gift, I got the symbol of what my sister was giving me in that connection. And it's not a but. And now here it sits on my table. And when I have to go find something to bring, because it has meaning, it was one of the first things my eye caught.
Yeah.
And so I know that it's all connected. We're all connected. So
There's again your themes, how you cherish trust, connection, intimacy, congruence, authenticity. And while we won't do it now, in our trainings, we go into wonderment, which would then trace way back to the very roots of the tree or trees that gave up their wood, and the how you brought in the importance of the familial, the whatever, whoever crafted this, what may have been emerging in their memory, in that day for them, and in wherever they went, that came through their hands, and then through your sister, the connection of organic, cultural, the familial, the intimacy, the bond, the feminine, and so many other wonderful, rich places that I know you grace this with.
right. Thank you. And I do have the other piece if you want to see
Please,
that.
please. Oh,
It's
for heaven's sake,
very
yes.
it's very interesting. I think it says a lot about me, which you want to know about. So here it
Yes.
is. It's a little bit heavy. So I think if I can do it, I don't know if you can,
I
I don't know
see.
if I can you see
A
it?
little, yes, right there. A little higher. Yes, right there. Beautiful.
If I turn it, you
Yes,
might, let me see.
I see.
So
Uh-huh. Hope,
this is a rock that says hope. I mean, you can see the other
dream.
ones. This one,
Yes, dream.
this says dream, I think. And
Uh-huh.
then this one says imagine.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
Okay.
And then
And so
we're
the
all
whole
different
thing,
spots. Yeah.
yeah. So the story of this,
Mm.
first of all, the lovely little ceramic piece that it is in. I actually made this
Oh,
in a
that's
ceramics class. I don't know when, years ago. And everything that is in here,
mm-hmm.
either I found it somewhere that I have traveled, or someone gave it to me. So every shell, every piece of coral, this is, I think it's agate. I forgot, but one of my former supervisees gave it to me as a gift. But there are, I mean, this is actually from the Caribbean in the British Virgin Islands. But I have little, like I have little teeny tiny shells that,
Oh, yes,
yeah.
yes.
I mean, I have, and all of these things, every single thing, every piece has, like I said, either been given to me by somebody who knows that I like, gems and rocks and things. Um, and or I found it myself. And so I'm
Beautiful.
gonna put it down, it's very heavy. But I saw that and I thought, if you want to know a little bit more about me, this is a good example of, well, first of all, the words, the dream, the imagine, hope, those are all things that I value. I value dreamers. I value, if we don't have hope, in my humble opinion, we don't have anything. Like, if my clients lose hope, what I would say is literally, I will hold it for you until you can. And so now I would say, let's find a way to create hope in a sand scene. Something I wouldn't have had before I met you. So I'm trying to bring them all in together because I've always had this has always been me. The holding hope, the metaphors. But now I just feel like I have like so many more layers that I didn't have before. And the other thing that ties this together is I have never felt in my life like I was very creative. I thought I was, I mean, we all have certain things, but I didn't think that was one of them, that being creative. And I was married to a musician for 15 years. And I admired his ability he had a beautiful singing voice. And he played piano and he played the guitar and he was self-taught and he did everything. He could act, he could do everything. And I'm like, oh my God, he is such a dreamer. He was so creative. And it kind of made me feel insecure in ways. It's like, I don't have anything like that. And I was like, wish I had something. I wish I had something like that. And really, I didn't. I did find in later years that I do like to cook, and I am pretty creative with food, and I can, take a pantry and find, items and make a meal. I can do that. So I started trying to do clay and like, oh, is that a thing I am? Or is that a thing I can do? And when I did the clay work, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm great at it, but I did enjoy it. And I did make a few things that made me feel good. But to bring in where we are now, these are all symbols. These are all symbols. And I feel creative now because I know that this could be anything. And I think what I would want to say most is that my creativity now comes from the endless possibilities that I can now see from doing this work. You can ask me whatever you want, whatever the meaning is about that, but that was what I concluded, that I am creative. It's just not coming from my own hands. It's actually coming more from my brain, my intellect, but also my intuition, which is also a gift. And I have a really good imagination, and now I feel free to use it. So this was a giant bowl of my life of meaning, because it's all, and I know we could dig in for 6 months on how many different things are in here that I could pull each one out if I remembered. I do remember where some of them came from and who some of them were given to me by. But I think to make the larger point for people who are watching is that you can find meaning and use creativity in anything, anywhere, anything. And this is just a beautiful bowl of example of how somebody can do that. And this actually lives in my house. This isn't in my office. This is my house.
And so as you lifted that up, I immediately saw from here on my Zoom side, a landscape, as we sometimes refer to in a sand scene, the landscape that you were lifted up by the very clay bowl plate that you created. And of course, where my brain goes is giving you permission and time post video to shrink down and enter like the landscape, all of the, to smell the essence of sea and wind, and to touch, to feel the silkiness of some of the crystal in there, and I almost imagine the scent of the Caribbean there, and all the little holes where little lives swam in and out. But it was as you lifted it, it felt like an uplifting moment. It felt like a Michele lifted the self. And I have witnessed your moving, widening, opening the portal to the depths of your imagination, because you are such a deep person. They go back to the word you embrace, an authenticity to the bone, authenticity to the very reaches of the depths of the sea that you've gathered, and the groundedness of the stones that you have painted, hope and dream, and then how you hold those together. So when we create, as you just did, while you would place that, it's probably been gathering for years, how you lifted that up for all of us, and to share that. I really believe in the collaborative gift giving that representation is, which is what you just did, to share your sensibility. And I saw the 5-year-old of yourself, looking up and having hope, looking up and finding meaning, searching, digging around in wherever you were on any beach, and the dreamer, and how you gift that. I imagine not only to your clients, but to those you supervise, those you train, and those that you mentor now.
Well, and I
Yeah.
thank you. And I would like to add the other side of it, which is what I really appreciate about you is your incredible ability to reflect what you see in such a deep and authentic way, that is a part of this journey, is that you have reflected to me. I didn't think about it all in that way. I thought about it in my way. And you have this magical gift, I think, of being able to reflect how you experience it and then give it back to me, which is, I think, why this is such a beautiful process. If you find a therapist or a guide or a mentor that can do that you have that connection and relationship with, you seem to, and I'm sure it's from your many years of work doing it, it doesn't feel like you have to think about. I feel like it comes from who you are, that you just jump into what this experience is and how you feel it. And I would say that even doing it through Zoom, I can still experience it. I have done it in person, which does feel more dynamic. So I do say to people, if you have an opportunity to take a class or go to a workshop or do it in person, it's definitely worth the time and investment, because you can get a much deeper, but this is super deep and we're doing it via Zoom.
A
So
point, let
I
me
just want to
slip
say
in
I appreciate you.
oh, thank you. Thank you, Michele. And I wanted to slip in the difference between narrative sand therapy and some other traditions or approaches is that I strongly take a non-interpretive stance and instead seek to understand. But so it's that opening up the discipline, like meditation or tai chi or whatever, to open the portal within the self. So my practice is to open my portal to the depths of imagination, creativity, and let that flow over, like I imagine an outer space wormhole kind of imagery, over to you. And so to that, we as therapists must step ego aside and then be able to open a channel that is supported by authenticity and trust and flow, so that imagination, it is truly you are right, it is truly my immediate experience of what you're doing, of what you're saying, that I'm
Right.
responding to. It would be impossible to contrive something, and it would be so artificial to say, ah, well, my association to seashell or plate or whatever, so would steal. It would so steal away from you the authentic meaning that's nested in your sense of sensibilities, the beauty, almost like a beautiful flower that opens up within you. That is as it were, the perfume of and unique imagination that, wow, has been there since you were a toddler. And I am grateful. Let me come full circle in that hermeneutic sensibility of gratitude to you, because when I train or when I'm present, it is an opening. It's a risk taking. It's a trusting path to welcome your authentic vulnerabilities. And so we both must be in that collaborative, trusting space, that openness. At the same time, my job is protection, to contain, and to really bring heightened presence. I believe heightened presence opens up the portal, as you have opened up your portal to an incredible imagination. I think one of the things I wanted, so many questions I want to ask you, but what has been your experience when you have come for retreats or for training, and you were in on case consultations? What is your experience with immersion? Because I think that that's a critical, essential component of all play therapies, expressive therapies, but certainly the use of this projective process. So would you mind sharing what
No,
happens for
I
you?
don't mind at all. I want to marry that with the, because I've been a talk therapist for a long time too, and a supervisor for, I think, 8 years, 9 years. So the thought of the therapist's own experience in the world is, there is no way to not have them connected to the kind of work that you do in the room with the client or a supervisee. So
Mm.
what I have learned is that um, the therapist also does exactly what you just said you were doing. We need to create the safety. We need to be the containers we need to be in the space that opens up the portal. I like that word, to the depth of whatever else is to come. But it's built on a foundation of safety and then trust. They kind of go together. And then the openness to be vulnerable to then do the next thing. So it's critical, in my opinion, that the therapist doing the work does their own work,
Yeah.
to be into the room with the client. Now, not everything, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be fully, you don't have to be fully healed. However, I think there has to be, you have to have achieved enough wellness so that your things don't interrupt the process that's going on, whether it's in talking, whether it's in doing sand scenes, or using other kind of modalities. If you get in the way, then your client isn't getting the best of the experience. So I wanted to say that. And it also goes for supervision. supervising and therapy, there's a parallel process. The therapist in the room is the container, creates the safety, sets the boundaries, and then does, ask the questions of their client. The supervisor creates the safety, creates the container for the therapist to do their work and to feel vulnerable and free enough to say, hey, I did this thing, it didn't work very well, or I did this thing, I'm really proud of myself, and get the validation. It's a parallel process. So to my own experience, I say, I have had several experiences, but the one I'm gonna speak of two. One quickly, my first experience. The first experience was at a 6-hour workshop in Sedona. And it was the first time I was ever introduced, sorry, to narrative sound therapy. I didn't know what that was. I did know and understand what symbols were. Sorry.
Go ahead, take some water. Yeah.
But I had been trained, I had been a play therapist, and I had been trained in play therapy and sand tray, which I know is different. But I was open and wanted to see what this was all about, because the symbols and all the metaphor projection is like, it's stuff I'm very familiar with. And I'm like, I'm open to see the possibilities. So I went to that first training. I think there were only 8 to 10 people in this thing. So it was very intimate. And I was an observer in this workshop, meaning that I did not, I taught, but I was personally going through something at the time that I felt like I was too vulnerable. And so I didn't want to go up there with my tray, even though I wanted to. I didn't feel like I was in the right space to allow myself to do that. So I watched you do the observations and asking the questions and the curiosity and the wonder. And literally, I wrote down as much as I could of what you were saying. I was writing in my journal all the questions. I'm like, oh my God, I had like 7 pages of questions. And I was really, I know I'm a little dramatic the way I'm doing this, but it felt that way. I was so in awe, and I didn't understand how you were asking these questions. I never thought of them in the way that you were presenting them. And so I wanted to share that, because I've changed. Not that I don't still want to know questions, but that first experience made me want more and say, oh my gosh, this is a whole new world that I have never heard of. And I know there's so much here. I still have the journal that I wrote in that weekend, and all the questions. But that experience was very different than my retreat experience, which was just earlier this year, I think. It's earlier this year.
2024.
Yeah. So in that experience, my goal, my intention for that weekend was, it was all about me. I'm not going as the therapist. I'm not going as the supervisor, although those hats are in my suitcase. But the hat I was wearing in the room was me. It was me, just me, the person. And I was dedicating this time to self-exploration and to want to grow and learn for myself. And I knew that that would translate to learning. If I'm a better version of me, if I'm more open, more creative, more imaginative, more open, more intuitive, more loving, kind, all of those things, then I will be that as a therapist and as, a supervisor. But my intention going in was all about me. And so, yay, because that's something that sometimes therapists and supervisors don't do. Self-care, people, it's a thing. Please take care of yourself. And by taking care of yourself, I mean, go to retreats that edify you, because you will become a better version of yourself, and then you will do better work. So it's not being selfish to do that. So my personal experience with the retreat was, well, it was very, I have written about it, and it said that it was really life-changing. And it was life-changing because the first thing is I allowed myself permission to be there, to be, and to whatever was going to happen, if I was going to fall apart, if I was going to be emotional and cry in front of other people, or if I was going to like face something that I didn't really want to face, then I was ready to do it. And I knew that the guided process was there for me to go as quickly or as slowly as I wanted to go, but I was open to do it. And so from the very beginning of the first request or invitation, which I, of course, appreciate, this is a very kind and generous process. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. You don't have to share. You don't have to talk. And you don't have to even do it. So you invited us to pick a symbol, an animal companion, somebody to join us on the journey, something that resonated with us, whatever lands with you, that was the very first thing. And I thought, okay. And I mean, I could go through the whole thing because it was really there. I'm not going to, but I remember that I picked two because I don't follow the rules. I have to do me. And so I picked two. And they both ended up being very instrumental in the work that I did and in the tray. So
And that was
what I
3 days. I'll
3 days,
insert here
that's right.
that retreats are 3 days. So that was day one. And
That was
what you
day
just
one.
said was those companions were with you. They started that 3-day journey with you.
They did. And they ended up being very important to the process, even though each of those things had an opportunity to have an experience with me individually. And then collectively, they became a part of my whole journey. And I think something that I haven't mentioned before that's really important about me and my work is that I rely a lot on intuition and gut. And I think as a clinician, if you have the gift of being intuitive, and I do think it's a gift, not everybody has it, or not everybody can trust it or rely on it, but I think it's my best tool, is that intuitive work. And I think that that's a lot of what happened at retreat for me was trust. I was saying to myself, trust your instinct, trust your gut, don't get in your head, get in your body and be here. And being is not easy for many people.
Yes.
And being is what was, I think your invitation was to be present, be here, be in your scene, enter the scene. Where do you want to enter? Where are you? But be here. What does it mean here? You can ask questions wonder about where have you been, or what's behind you, or where are you going, or what's to come, or what's buried under there. However, you have to be here in order to wonder where and where you can go. So intuition was a really big part of it. And I think I always knew it, but I think the retreat integrated that. This is something I use in therapy as well, but we can know things and then we can know them here, but they're not, until they're integrated, it's not a knowing for me. It's, oh, that's in your head. It's until we intellectualize here, and here maybe we're just emotional, but it's not connected. You can't only emote and have no connection to, a construct or reality. So, but when they're together, then you can use your imagination. You can be creative because I don't know, I guess I'm looking at the hearts of there's a connection. It's all connected. So if this isn't connected, then we're kind of messy. And anyway, so that was a big part of the retreat for me, was being able to be present, being able to sit with what I created, and it did go over time. Do you want to add? Do you want to not add? What's going to change? I remember sitting there for like an hour doing nothing but staring, looking, being in it, looking around, which I found really helpful because I don't give myself the time normally to do that. And then the other part of it is your participation in it. For me, again, it reflects on just what you did here with my symbols and my container, that you did the same thing in the tray, and you asked me about what would you like from me. You didn't come over and just do something. What would you like? And with you, I asked you, I said, I'd like a reflection. I'd like your reflection, because I've come to learn that when you enter the space with me and you open that portal, like magic happens. That's my truth. And you know this because you invited me to do it, but I recorded 22 minutes of your reflection of my tray, which I still listen to, and I have to do it in pieces because it's so much that, but I can still work on that tray with your reflections, probably for the rest of my life, just because there was so much in there. And I know I thanked you, but I'm gonna thank you again. That was so amazing for me, because you see things, because you allowed yourself to immerse into what I created there. And so that's as if you are me seeing it from the outside. And that's the brilliance of this work. That's the brilliance of this. And it really changed my life, because the thing that I discovered in that process, which was really about me, it was me. Part of it, I mean, I don't need to share the whole thing, but part of it was me standing on the outside of a door that was open, with a journey on to some other things that were unknown. But by the end of the retreat, I was on the inside of the door, on the path, with my eyes open, and a few things had moved around, but that's the symbol. That's what I allowed, that came through me, that you helped support in that process. And so, and I think you even dove in a little bit of the meaning of the detail, but the point of this to those who are who may listen to this, is that if you allow yourself to be open and you're vulnerable, anything is possible. This work, the symbols, using a world of sand as a platform, and symbols as I mean, symbols can be pictures, symbols can be all kinds of things, but endless possibilities. And I think that's what I learned the most from that experience, is that I got all this, and there are more possibilities for me to go back, look at, immerse in, look at it from a different perspective, turn it around, go over here, go over here. It's endless. And to me, that's freedom. That's it.
Let me underscore part of what you're saying here is identifying, certainly naming, being able to name. The individual like yourself might say, I put this here for this reason, or I have no idea what this is. But pardon me, I'm going to have to cough here. The word endless brings up for me the whole idea behind narrative therapy. That we have stored in memory these real lived experience from an existential point of view, from the memory, and then in the distortions of memory, but also the invention that is allowed to happen once you feel safe, that then sitting on metaphorically, sitting as a little one right there on the side of the edge of your tray, and then looking out and being able to step across and discover, to actually discover and invent, and then be in touch with just the pure emotions, like not even having to put a name on them, that all of that richness is already there. It doesn't come from the therapist or anybody, but it is the beauty, the really profound beauty of you opening up and taking the steps, having the courage, as Rollo May would say, the courage to create is
Mhm.
then the courage to step into and to be in awe of yourself, the
Mhm.
depths of what you hold, and then, oh my goodness, discover endless, but then keep some boundaries, because it can be
Right,
so overwhelming, is to keep safe the stories that are not ready to be told or shared,
right.
that must be kept in silence, and to listen to the voices in the scene that are ready, that say, hey, Michele, we're here. and then um and then to bring some very safe containment closure to that, so you can carry it forward. All of that is validation for who you carry around, all of the wealth. And it does take a different position, the therapist, or my position, the trainer, that the position is very different than
Mhm.
traditional psychotherapy.
For
It's
sure.
a different position. So to be clear, I'm not interpreting what you have put out. And
Right.
my questions are wonderment rather than a poking around at.
Right. Yeah. I use the word reflection. And I think that, I mean, my meaning when I use that word is that you are saying what you see as, I, I wonder about this, or you can, if you can see this, or maybe I see this, but it's not saying that I see it. It's just, this is a perspective. It's
Mhm,
all about perspective.
mhm,
And that really resonates with me. And it also resonates with me as I try to tie it all together from what I said in the beginning, which is, as a therapist, I'm able to do this work for me so that I can do this for my clients. If I wasn't able to do these kinds of things in my own work, I feel like my place is different in the room with a client, either, and I'm not saying that people who don't have experience doing and their own sand scenes can't do it. They will do it differently. The depth of what I can do, I believe, is directly related to my own experience. So I would say to any therapist who's starting out, whether they're in graduate school, whether they're new clinicians, that I would say get as much training as you can, do your own workshops, go to retreats. I've done the same workshop with you at least 4 times, the same one. It's always different.
mhm,
But
mhm,
the reason is because I believe that every experience is just giving me more, and it gives me it's richer for myself, so that by now the amount of trainings I've done and the amount of
mhm,
workshops and the amount of experience that I personally have, I feel like when I go into the room and I facilitate a client doing a sand scene, I have a different perspective on when and why I would ask them to do it,
mm,
because I know from my own experience what that could bring. And so before that, I was trained in play therapy. And so I could always use play therapy, and I've done it for years with mostly kids, but I have used it with adults. But it just was, the projection and metaphor, which still work, but I see symbols differently. So I ask different questions. That's the difference. I
yes.
ask different questions about what's going on, and I can see in the work. I personally use sand scenes with a couple of current clients, and one in particular that I've been working with as long as I've known you. Like, it's been a couple years. So I've seen my own work with this client change over
Wow.
time. And the other thing that I want to share as a clinician, as also I'm a supervisor. So as a supervisor, all of my staff have been gifted by me an intro training to your work. So they've all been they've only had an intro training, but they are all intrigued. And so they've had a stepping stone to at least understanding it. So now when I supervise them, I can ask them things, and I've done a couple of things that I feel rather proud of. Hearing what they're struggling with, saying to them, well, I wonder if you could ask your client to find a symbol that represents that despair. Now, that did not come from my early training. That came from this. And so, and I haven't done it yet, but I have an idea about how I want to have a client show their work, their client's work in a sand scene, like from them to do it. And then I can help facilitate that. Now, I wouldn't have done that. And I'm actually, I mean, I feel like I have enough training to do it now, but I still am very cautious because I want to make sure my clinicians are safe, and I want to make sure that I kind of know what I'm doing. I mean, I'm allowing for process to occur, but I just want you to know, and I want people to hear that this really changed the way my perspective on the work. And I'm still a therapist who, I mean, I always look at attachment. I mean, it's always a thing that it comes to me in my work. And I've always been a humanistic, unconditional positive regard, whether it's in the sand scene or in the room.
Yeah.
Please, let's honor the person, who they are. I mean, my practice is be authentic family therapy. If you can't be authentic, you can't be you, and I can't honor you, then I don't know. I might need to change. But I got that. And so, and I do have a very broad perspective of the world and wanting to connect all the all the people, social justice, community, honoring everybody. So that's my flavor. But also as a therapist, if I'm doing talk therapy, I'm mostly going to guide and provide, besides emotional support validation, to elicit insight on the client's part. I mean, I want to help them see things. So if I'm talking, I mean, I have a lot of experience doing that. I have less experience using sand, but now I'm marrying them together with symbols that I'm still eliciting insight, but I'm not actually doing it. The process is doing that. And I have friends and things to do it. So it actually makes my job a lot easier because I can
let
use
me
the
insert
symbols instead of my own brain.
Let's anchor this in a word that I think it's important, and that's experience. Like your experience, client's experience, supervisees. Like, if we come from that existential nest with humanistic, then everything is anchored in experience, in the important bit, part of the important bit that you deal with, I think, because you are such a I would say a leader in the social justice and the really challenging on some community work that you do, is the idea of power. There's a metaphor that, say, for example, sand play therapists, Jungian sand play therapist will use, and I think Sand Tray may sometimes use this, is trust the process. And I hold the stop sign up right there. Trust the experience, because if you trust the process very subtly, you are jumping out of the relationship, the alliance of the humans and the symbols, to validate a process. And of course, I understand, having been trained myself, I understand what that metaphor means. But I also want to, from a social constructionist point of view, from an existential point of view. I want to unpack that and say, let's stay grounded in the human experience of immediacy, which is trust yourself and trust the client. And then in that larger framework, of course, we are trusting process. But if we move down into trust the integrity of being, then we can guard against some power problems that may insert themselves subtly, unconsciously, I think. But as we come to, we're moving toward closure with our session, and frankly, I would like to pick up with another interview with you. And I also want to say, please, by all means, if you wish, let's Zoom on separate from this platform. Let's Zoom on that exploration of different ideas for your supervision. I have, because I've been doing that for over 20 years with a couple of agencies, and I really like to share with you, just gift to you the, here's some ideas, here's what's worked, here's what you might want to explore. So that's just a footnote. And this is what I do in my trainings when somebody is so committed, such as yourself. I really want to, that it's my job as a mentor to offer as much as I can. But that aside, I wanted to not take away from that we're grounding ourselves, and you have been through this whole interview in your lived experience, who you are, Michele, as a person, the person of the therapist, that metaphor that we use, and how you bring that. And of course, no wonder every training, every retreat, every consult would be different, because it is about you and not a theory or a process or a recipe or some standard. It is about the permission and protection and empowerment of you. So I just want to embrace that and validate the person of the therapist in who you are. And I'm wondering if there's some wisdom. I want to give the stage back to you. Are there wisdoms that you would like to give to our viewers? And is there some change? Is there something that you would like to see changed in the mental health system at large, preparation, education, training, whatever that might be, that you would like from your worldview now, from your lived experience? What would you like to see changed? What are the wisdoms that you'd like to share? Are those two things you'd like to open up to right now?
Yeah, the latter, the second part of it, I think I mean, I'll try to get something out. It seems so big that I'm not sure what I would think is possible in terms of change. The wisdom that I think it's been woven into most of what I've been saying is that and kind of what you just said about trust the experience, that I think what I've learned over time is to trust in myself and trust in my own intuition and my gut, and be brave to explore once you're safe. As long as you're safe, I don't think people who are traumatized, people whose wounds are still open and deep, I'm talking about from the therapist perspective, you can, my personal belief, you can only go as deep as you've gone.
Exactly.
And if you have only scratched the surface, then you are going to scratch the surface with your clients. And maybe that's enough. I think that there are many therapists for many people in their lifetime, and you might only be able to take them to a certain place. Whereas where I am, not that I mean, I think I have a wealth of experience and a good, well of knowledge. And I'm mostly, healed. So I think you take the elevator all the way down. If you want the client can go there, I'll go. I can go, I can manage it, I can hold it, I can contain it. And if I can't, then I'm going to be able to be transparent, because I've learned about being transparent is the safest and best way. Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know about that. We need to explore it. I'm not sure. I can say that now, where 10 years ago I was like, oh, I have to know everything. I can't say that. So trusting my own instincts, trusting my gut, being able to be vulnerable, knowing what you know what you know and know what you don't. Well, you might not know what you don't know, but know what you know and rely on that, because you, our first responsibility is to make sure that clients are safe and supervisees are safe. We cannot allow, I'm all jazzed about this thing and I just dive in there and I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know what this person can manage. I could be putting them at risk, and we don't want to do that. So know yourself is know what you've got, trust that. That is probably some of the greatest wisdom I can share. Is I know people might want to be really excited, or they might be really excited, they might want to jump in. Well, jump in slowly. Put your toe in the water. You don't have to go in the deep end. Put your toe in the water, then put your whole foot, then just walk in. It is a process, and it does take time to, and I wouldn't use the word master, because I think it's that kind of indicates an expert, which I have never been an expert in anything. And I always tell my clients in our informed consent session, I say, you know, I am not an expert. I'm not going to be an expert in your life. I am a guide. I am a mentor. I'm a teacher. I'm going to show you. I'm going to share things. I'm going to offer suggestions. I am barely an expert in my own life. I cannot be an expert in yours. And this is a truth. I actually believe that. I mean, I navigate my life the best I can, but I still run into roadblocks. I still fall over trees and do all that. So, but trusting myself and believing, I guess this is another part, believe in who you are and know your gifts. This is something I ask when I hire people, I ask them a question. What do you think your greatest gift is? And I say, I mean it. Don't fluff, or don't be afraid to say, I'm freaking smart. I'm really empathic. Tell me what your gift is, because if you know it, then you believe it. And I was taught very early on, whatever you believe is true is true. So if you believe you are a good, competent, safe, ethical, then you are. If you believe what you're doing and you have passion behind the work that you do, then it will work. But you have to believe it. So you got to know what it is first. So that's, I asked them, what are your gifts? And I think you need to know what your gifts are and be confident, believe in yourself. And the work that you have shared with me about symbols, and even what we did in the beginning, when you did the I am, I am not afraid anymore. You did this same thing and I think it was in the certificate training that I did. I don't remember. We brought a symbol in, and that was about to represent who we were. And I did the same thing. And you said, would you be willing? And I will share. You didn't say that to everybody. You did not go that deep with everyone. Because some people, you just get the feeling you got to go where you got to go. But you already could tell, and we had met previously, so you knew of my depth, and you were brave. I was brave. We did it. But I was able to go, I am kind. I am generous. I am deep. I think my symbol was probably a tree, because that metaphor is my life metaphor. But I am deep. I do have roots. I do have all these things. And so I think that I try to instill in my clients and instill might not be the right word. It's collaborative. It's going through the process, that it's a trusting, solid, grounded relationship. So whoever it is, but I want them to feel confident. I want to build that. I want to help them feel that they are their very best. And so that's what they give. If you
Mm,
are that, you give that. You can't give what you don't have. So, yeah,
okay. We have 2 minutes maybe. When you
okay.
held up the wooden hearts, um, what came to me was an image of our experience today, that you've allowed me um, to be one of a wooden hearts together, where I could really, there's so much that you have to offer, and I really wanted to lift that up, as well as allow whatever sap I have running through my wooden heart to flow in those points of connection with the heart that you give to the world, the heart that you give way beyond your professional practices. It's a pleasure and a joy and an honor to truly be with you today. Um, I would like us to continue, because there are other examples, for example, with your clients and all the wisdoms that you have. So let's do that. Let's do another video. Is
Absolutely.
I'm going to pause there by just giving you this um, appreciation that comes from my heart to you, and turn it over to you for your last words for those that have joined us in this video. How would you like to bring closure, Michele?
Well, I would like to gift back what you just gave me, which is a profound respect and honor. And I feel like it's a blessing to be with you as well. To me, this is what the world and what it's all about is making connections and being with people. And if I have something to offer that helps other people, just like you, I want to share it. And that's what we're doing. And I'm happy to continue. If you want to do it again,
Yeah,
I'm happy to do that.
good.
And we'll just be in touch and connection and having gratitude for what you have and where you are gets you more. You don't get more unless you are appreciative of what you have. And I definitely appreciate what I have and what we have. And I thank you for thinking of me and wanting to hear what I have to say.
Mm. And thank you all for joining us, when whatever year this is for you, and whatever space you're in terms of your own development. And we'll see you again in our next interview. So everybody, please take good care. And Michele, take gentle care. We'll see you
Thank you.
again.
You too.
Alrighty. Bye-bye now.
Bye.